Okay, I got it.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. For those of you who are new to the space, my name is Christina. I am a naturopath, herbalist, life coach, GAPS practitioner, and now carnivore. And this is a space where I share the stories of other carnivores in conversation. So it's basically called Conversations with Carnivores. So come and join me as we introduce today's guest, Shira, who is joining us from the other side of the planet for me. And she's going to share her story with us. So welcome, Shira, to the program.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Now, one of the things that I liked when I was reading through your blurb is that you started on GAPS and have now transitioned to carnivore. So share with us what took you to GAPS and then moved you into carnivore. Share with us that journey.
I actually started from SCD, from the specific carbohydrate diet, which is the predecessor of GAPS. So my husband has Crohn's, and after trying out medication, he found the book and we read it, we implemented it. It's exactly 10 years since we did it, just before our wedding. And he felt great. He got to our wedding glowing. And then we went on honeymoon and all the stress and everything, and it was hard to keep the SCD. He came back, he needed an operation. Anyway, we've been kind of doing it ever since. And looking through the book, there's an episode, a chapter called SCD and Autism. And then fast forward 2 years, we had our son, and then he was developing pretty well. His food was always an issue. His sleep was always an issue. At around a year and a half, he started being weaker in his fine motor skills. He stopped wanting to do any coloring. His speech didn't develop properly. His social skills didn't develop properly. My mom, it's a different story, but my mom, who's in the field of special needs, said to us, kind of, guys, you need to look into it. The term autism started floating around. We had meetings with the professionals. We started the diagnosis process, and that memory of the chapter in the book kind of stayed in the back of my head. And then I saw on Facebook a friend share her friend's lunchboxes that she sends with her son to school or to kindergarten. And I'm originally from Israel. That lady was in Israel. And those boxes looked really familiar in what they don't have in them. They didn't have any bread. They didn't have any pasta. They didn't have any rice. Everything was like, it was clear that they were missing those staples. So I started looking into it, and I discovered the whole GAPS movement, the term GAPS, the whole movement. There's a practitioner in Israel. She has a great website. So I started looking through it, and I was like, you know what? Let's look into it. And I had a chat with my husband, and he said to me something that stayed with me. He said, listen, when I'm on the right food, it's like I see the world in color, and I can do things, and I have patience for people, and I'm happy. And I want that for my son. Let's do it. So we did it, spoke to his nursery. Within 48 hours, the boy who could not get to the toilet on time looked in my eyes and said, Mommy, I need the toilet.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm sure you hear lots of stories like that, but I was like, right, it's working. Fast forward 3 years later, I had twins. My eldest, my twin boy-girl twins, he couldn't control himself. He was 3.5. He managed to do number ones fine, number twos every other day. I was like, I said to the nursery, don't send me the clothes back. It was that bad. And I was like, okay, so let's do with it. I'll start sending lunches for the kids. And again, within a few days, he stopped missing, and he hasn't missed since. So I know there's something there. And since I started with my eldest, he's he has been diagnosed, he has autism, but it's mild. You know, he has his challenges. We've done other biomedical interventions. I'm very much into the autism recovery world. And again, with my twins, at 6 months, they had digestive issues when I started giving them porridge. But around the same time, I was starting GAPS. So I was like, right, let's put them on the same nutrition. And they were fine.
Yeah.
And they grew up, you know, they're thriving. They don't have cavities. They're now almost 6. They're tall, they're strong, they're developing well. My eldest had a cavity in his tooth and it's healed. So GAPS works for us. Yeah, it's a success story. We've now been able to relax it. So, you know, when we go out, they can eat the junk food that they want, but at home we keep it quite strict. And as I said in my blurb, I was kind of do as I say, don't do as I do towards myself.
Ooh, interesting. I just want to add just a little bit quickly here, because for us, we started with GAPS because of my husband. So my husband had irritable bowel syndrome, and we started for GAPS for him. And then we also had a child. So we've got 7 children. And baby number 6 was born prematurely, and he had a hole in his lung, and he had some stuff where they had to give him heavy duty medication at birth in order to kind of preserve his life. And so he had delayed learning, like growth wise, great. He looks like he's the same age as his peers types of things, but developmentally wise, he definitely wasn't. And he actually didn't start talking until about 16 months. And then he would lose sentences. So he would say, mum, 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 and that would be the only thing he would be able to say for a while. And then he would learn the word dad, and that would be the only thing he'd be able to say for a while. And he forgot mum. And so for us, like, we went, okay, well, we know that GAPS works. Let's go back to GAPS, and had a similar situation to you with your sons, in that within weeks of changing him onto GAPS, he was not just saying one word, he was saying full sentences. And he wasn't just doing one action. Like, I remember this moment sitting on the couch with my husband, and my son must have wanted a drink. He didn't come and tell us that he wanted a drink. He just decided that he wanted a drink. And he'd never in his life before this, he was about 2 at the time, never in his life before this, done this. He pushed the chair to the sink, stood up on the chair, turned the tap on, got himself a drink, turned the tap off, and drank the water. And both of my husband and I were sitting there looking at each other going, are we hallucinating? Like, are you seeing what I'm seeing? Because, like, not only did he do one of those actions, he couldn't do one of those actions on its own before, let alone this string of actions that he was able to do to help him get a drink of water. So, you know, that for me was like, I'm so in love with GAPS at this point in time. But now I'm interested in your story. Do as I say, but not as I do. What happens there?
Well, you know, with 3 kids, I think I was pretty much compensating with food, emotionally eating. The food at home was very healthy. But again, it was like the eat your vegetables, and if I'd go out, like, I'm out, I'm not at home, I'm not the one with the problem. Now, since the pregnancies with my kids, I had pimples on my chin and very red cheeks, and it would get worse and better and worse and better. And I did acupuncture for a while, and that improved it, but I couldn't get a diagnosis. I went to my GPs 3 times. They gave me steroid creams, they gave me antifungal creams, nothing really helped until my mom visited me, took a picture with her phone, sent it on WhatsApp to her friend who's a doctor. Within 5 minutes, he came back, he said, it's perioral dermatitis and rosacea. This is the kind of antibiotics. He's a kind of standard GP. This is the antibiotics she should get. Probably a cream, probably laser treatment. That's it. So I went into Google, and like, now I've got an idea of what it could be. I said, the worst thing you could get for perioral dermatitis is steroid creams. I'm like, right, I'm going to stop with that. And within 24 hours, I think, I got the worst withdrawal I could have. My face was literally purple.
Yep.
I had like red, purple cheeks, red, purple here with white spots. It was horrendous. I don't even have pictures. I refuse to take any pictures of myself. But knowing that GAPS can help, I read about the natural treatments, but I was like, no, give me the meds. I need to get rid of this. So I went into the doctor. I said, I have periodontitis, and Rosetti said, yes, you do. It was like an older doctor who thankfully knew all about it, gave me a list of things to avoid. So I looked at the list and I'm like, okay, that makes sense. It's like coffee, chocolate, all the C's, coffee, chocolate, Chianti, and something else. I don't remember now, but all the nice things, cheese, coffee, chocolate, Chianti, and cheese, all the loveliest things that I was allowing myself.
Yeah.
So I cut all of that out. I started taking cod liver oil, diatomaceous earth for skin regeneration, colloidal silver washing. In the UK, someone recommended lion's leaf cream, which is a calendula and zinc cream, which was great. And I was taking the antibiotics, and my skin healed very fast, but I was on antibiotics for 3 months. And it didn't have a huge effect that I noticed on my gut, but I think it did. Now, ever since my pregnancies, I had this little belly under. I'm a pear shape, normally quite a relatively flat stomach, but I started having a belly in my upper stomach, and I still looked pregnant, like 3, 4, 5 years later. I gained weight during COVID, and I just couldn't bring myself to do anything. Then I read about intermittent fasting. So my face was better, was feeling okay, read about intermittent fasting and decided to try that. But I was having like a bulletproof coffee in the mornings and fooling myself that I'm fasting. I didn't lose 1 kilo. I didn't lose. And I said I follow kind of like the GAP scene in Israel. I was also following the keto scene in Israel. And I joined this WhatsApp group with this lady who kind of guides people, kind of like you. She's not a naturopath, but she's a health professional. And she supports people through their transition to carnivore, or to keto and carnivore. And she offered on her Facebook page, she offered a half-hour chat to get you started. And I said, I want it. I was on it. Let's do it. And we had the call, and she said, listen, from what you're describing, the way you're doing, the way you're eating, the way you're handling yourself, the way you describe the way you look, you're probably pre-diabetic. You could go, you could do blood tests, you could check it out, but you probably are. Here is how you can start feeling better. And I guess that kind of switched my mind, and I stuck to her instructions, which was basically having 1 day with 2 meals, so breakfast and dinner, no snacks in between. She talks about, you know, mouth boredom, how to deal with that, what to do. You know, quite a protein and fat heavy meal in the morning, protein and fat heavy meal in the evening, nothing in between. And then the next day, if you're not hungry for breakfast, don't have breakfast, just have 1 meal in that day. And I kind of tried to stick to that, and I started losing weight, and I felt fantastic. And then Christmas came, and I kind of let go. But then it was, for us, it's Hanukkah, then it's Christmas, and then I didn't eat any donuts. I stuck to like gluten-free, but I was still allowing myself.
For us, it's Christmas and then birthdays.
Yeah. No, for me, birthdays are all in the summer. So in her WhatsApp group, her and another naturopath run Carnivore January challenge, And I was like, right, I'm doing it. I'm going to boost my weight loss. And I did it. And the first week of January, I had my period, and my period is usually, it's very regular, but it's very painful and very emotional, and it's full of clots. And I've had acupuncture, and I've done the moxa and all of that kind of stuff.
All
it's still
things.
there.
Yeah.
And then 3 weeks later, I had another period, and I had some pain, I had some mood, and I was like, oh, here it goes again. And the next day, there was no pain, and there were no clots. So I had mild pain the first day, mild PMS, and that's it. And no clotting. And I was like, okay, there's something here. And I was losing weight. I was losing weight. I lost about 6 kilos in that month. I was feeling better. And then I went for a walk with my husband, and I was like, you know, my hips that usually hurt on a walk, they're not hurting. I was like, okay, I like this. But coming from Israel, it's a Mediterranean country. You have salad with every meal.
Exactly.
You have vegetables. The grains I can live without. The vegetables, the avocado, the seasonal vegetables. I really struggle. And kind of at the end of January, I kind of let loose, but managed to keep it within. I was like, remember, you feel well on carnivore. And I joined the group. Oh, sorry, just a second. My son's just decided to come downstairs, even though he's supposed to be asleep. This is Sam.
Hi, Sam.
And it's Pluto. I'm talking to Christina. I really need you to go to sleep.
Mom.
I really need you to go to sleep, Sam. And
I can't go to sleep.
maybe take another banana. Okay? You ready?
I'm not hungry.
Okay, so lie in bed. I'll come to you soon, okay? I'll finish here and I'll come to you. Okay?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Sam.
Can I show her my Lego?
No, we can talk about other things. Come on, Sally. I'm telling her.
This is what I'm gonna build.
Oh, that's really cool.
I've got a different ninja.
Yeah, come on.
But the same.
I'll tell you all about it tomorrow, okay? I'll come up soon.
My boys love those things too.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course, on the nights when on the night that I need him to go to
I
sleep.
know. I have 7 children.
That's
Life is
amazing.
like that.
By the
I'm
way.
usually sitting in here with like 2 dogs and a cat, and then like kids circling around me like sharks. We just make it happen.
Yeah, exactly. He's very sweet, but he struggles sometimes with sleep. He's been really good with sleeping. So
Yep.
obviously tonight is going to be the trouble.
Of course. And it's full moon.
Yeah.
Well, over here in Australia, it's full moon.
Yes,
It's probably not full moon over there.
yes.
It might be new moon.
I think it might be new moon. I need to
The
check.
2
I do
times
have
when
an app.
parasites start to come out.
I know. No. My little girl, she had a period about half a year where every time it was a new moon, I knew it was going to be a sleepless night. And
Yeah.
Treated that naturally as well.
Awesome. So back to you. So
Yeah.
January you did carnivore, and you know, for those that are watching at home following along, Dr. Sean Baker, that's his birthday month. So he decided that, like, you know, January like was labeled the vegan month, and he went, you know what, that sucks. Let's do carnivore month, and I'll set them. Let's do a month of carnivore, and it'll be my birthday month, and it'll be amazing. And so he started that, you know, a couple of years ago. So you did January.
Yeah, I didn't know it was his birthday month. I just discovered him at the end of the month, because I was like, this is working for me. I better start looking into it. And then I joined the Facebook groups and started listening to podcast after podcast after podcast. They're my favorite podcasts now.
Yeah. And then the vegetables were calling out to you.
They were calling out to me. I make lovely ferments and I make lovely salads, and I enjoy it, and it's part of the life that I know. So I had some, and I kept keeping it down, but still having some. And then we went on holiday back to Israel, and I felt fantastic. Like it's been a long time since since I was there and felt so good.
Yeah.
But towards the end, again, the vegetables it was Passover, so you have lots of family meals. And as much as I really tried, I was buying lots of meat, lots of stock, like bone broth. I really kept it for like the first week. The second week was a bit more difficult. Came home and had a terrible period. And I was like, okay, my body's talking.
Yeah.
So I've been sticking to carnivore since. A little bit of vegetables here and there. We had our 10-year anniversary, so we went out for dinner, but I'm discovering things that when I let go, I'm discovering what works and what doesn't work. So wine for me is a no-no. I suffer for days after having wine. But a little bit of fermented vegetables is okay. If I do feel like something sweet, if it's not, if I sweeten with some honey, it's okay.
Yep.
But as long as I don't go overboard, and I'm managing not to go overboard. I've also stopped coffee. So after January, I noticed that everything was great, but my skin was still quite red along my kind of T area, and it was quite dry. And I was drinking lots of meat stock, eating lots of collagen-rich cuts, lots of butter, and I was like, what's going on? And my rosacea became ocular rosacea, so my eyes felt quite dry. And the Carnivore January I was doing was no dairy as well, except for butter.
Yep. So was it beef, butter, bacon, and eggs? Like, was that the basic January thing for you?
Any kind of meat, butter, ghee,
but no dairy,
fat, no dairy, lots of eggs. We don't eat bacon at home. I do eat when we're out, but we don't eat bacon at home. So I love, I'll tell you probably later about the stuff I love making. But yeah, when I started having a little bit more dairy, my eyes started feeling sandy. And days that I drank a lot of coffee, my eyes were sandy. So I was like, right, let's try cutting it out. And the thing is, you probably get it when you're in carnivore and you've already cut out so many things. On the one hand, you're like, oh, I need to cut out another thing. But I was also like, okay, I've cut out so many things and I'm doing well.
Yeah.
What's cutting out another thing? And instead of having coffee, I was having meat stock, and I didn't have headaches. I was like, okay, I can do it. Yeah. So, and my skin slowly improved. And now I can have a coffee about once a week and I'm okay. So I'm saving it for if I go out with someone or, I'll have a coffee. If I really, really crave it, I'll have a coffee. Also, I listened to Dr. Anthony Chaffee, and he was saying how he was training and he didn't feel any pain. And he's thinking, am I overdoing it? Training. And he was fine. He had no muscle pain the next day. And then the day after, he met a friend for a coffee, and suddenly he cramped. And he was like, right, it must be the coffee. I'm not going to have coffee anymore. And he's a lot more hardcore than me. I was like, if he can do it, I can do it.
Yeah, he's probably hardcore than most people. But I think too that when you're so used to your body feeling good, that when it doesn't, you notice it so much. Like when you're like, again, like when you're feeling so good and so vibrant, that when suddenly you don't, it's real bummer. It's a real like, I don't like this feeling.
Yeah, I'd rather have the energy and feeling like I'm on the up than like my hips. So
the follow-on effect from that is so much. Like, for example, just from the perspective of your hips, like that means you don't then go, oh, should I go for that walk with the kids, or should I go kick the ball, or should I do these things? And you're questioning, that's going to hurt. Do I want to do it? Versus it's not going to hurt. Yes, let's go do that. Like life just changes in the way that we respond to it.
If my kids break out in a run, I'll run with them. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's never happened.
I love that. I love that. So
Yeah.
where are you now?
Where am I
Comes to
now?
carnivore and all of the things.
I'm almost carnivore. I would say I'm 95% carnivore. Usually I have 2 meals a day. So I'll get up, get the kids ready, pack their school lunches, because school lunches are not gaps. So I make breakfast, I send breakfast to school, and I send lunch to school. I'll come home, and I've started only eating when I feel hungry.
Yeah.
So I was getting hungry earlier. Now I starting to get hungry quite later. So probably around 9:30, 10 o'clock. Sometimes I push it to 11, 12. And I have a lot of food. I have like 4 eggs. I like making things like gravlax, so cured fish. That's a great breakfast thing. I make lots of jerky for the kids and for me, and I have it with butter. That's my like go-to on a long day where there's a big gap between my breakfast and my dinner. I'll kind of snack on jerky and butter. And then I'm completely satiated and full of energy for the day. So I get stuff done, prepare dinner. So I don't prepare 3 different meals or 4 different meals. I prepare the main meat that will be suitable for me as well. And then I might do other stuff for the kids. They can now have rice, they can have potatoes, they can have peas. Peas and sauce is our thing. That's how I get stock into my kids. Peas and sauce. So I cook any vegetables I cook in the meat stock.
Yeah.
And then I'll have just the meat, maybe with a little bit of fermented vegetables. If it's not enough meat, then I'll make an egg. So yeah, and that's it.
I love that. I'm curious, have you met your health goals yet? Like, are you still working towards some health goals, or have you met your goals now and you're happy and you're like, now we're looking at maintaining?
I haven't met my health goals yet. I started at 110 kilos. I'm now 90 kilos.
Congratulations, breaking the 100.
Thank you. And I want to lose about another 10. I think that should be good. I'm not training, so I'm not doing any exercise regularly. I would like to find a way of doing it, but can't really see myself. Like, I cycle with the kids down to school, cycle back, but that's about 5 minutes. So if I can extend
these are my method. Is like, these are essentially just like weights that you strap onto your wrists and ankles. And so then I just do normal stuff. So that is one of the ways that I have included some exercise or some resistance training in it, because like, as we lose weight, so for example, you've lost 20 kilos, like that 20 kilos that you previously had on created some resistance for your muscles and your bones. Now that you've lost that, there's less resistance for them. So by putting some of that weight back on and just doing your normal everyday stuff, you're just adding that bit of resistance to it without going, oh, now I need to go to the gym for an hour. All I have to do is go do the washing and peg it out. And, you know, I just created some resistance training by doing that activity.
I'm going to do that and tell you how it goes.
Good.
So yeah, I want to lose those other 10 kilos. I want to maintain healthier periods. I think that's basically it. I don't have any kind of other terrible health, but you know, there's breast cancer in my family. I've lost a friend to breast cancer. It's something I want to avoid. I think a health goal of avoiding is
is a good health goal as well. And I think that staying in at least that keto space where your body is mostly using fat as a fuel source will most likely keep you out of that, depending on what type of breast cancer runs in your family. Because it's not
genetic. Each member of the family from both sides, my father and my mother, had different types of cancer. So it's not genetic, but there's a tendency.
So that will most likely keep you in healthy stead if you stay in that keto space. If it's a hormonal based one, then you just need to play around with your fat and your protein levels a little bit to resolve that. But stay keto, you're most likely not going to really develop anything anyway. So I'm curious, like, what your plans are. Like, once you've reached those health goals that you still have, it sounds like to me you're like pretty keen to get some fruit and veggie, just kind of a little bit around the edges at least. Are you thinking ketovore will kind of be where you go?
I think so. I think ketovore, and just see how it affects me more in terms of my regular, like how I feel.
Yeah.
If I eat too much, my body will tell me you've had too much. And I also, you know, with the knowledge we have with GAPS, it is a healing diet, the carnivore diet. The GAPS, no plant GAPS is, you know, it's,
I know it's a part of it already.
It's all about the healing, but you know, I don't think I'll ever go back to a regular diet. I'm always going to have to monitor it.
Yeah.
But you know, in GAPS, the goal is to reintroduce foods and have as normal life as possible. I'm hoping that after a period on carnivore, maybe I'll be able to reintroduce things without any side effects, without any kind of bad effects. Yeah.
And I think this is an interesting point because being the practitioner that I am, I have a lot of other practitioners that follow me and are like kind of watching what I'm doing, and they'll have a lot of criticism because they'll be like, but you know, the Mediterranean diet is great and this diet is great and this diet is great. And I'm like, there's more moving parts than just the diet, in the sense that for me, I can't imagine that I would likely, and that doesn't mean I won't ever get there, but I can't imagine that I would likely be able to ever get to hyper carnivore, for example. So hyper carnivore is 70% meat products and 30% plants. Like, that's the approximate ratio of what hyper carnivore stands for. I can't imagine that I would likely be able to get there, because the other moving part for me is that I have a carb addiction. So for me, I'm absolutely addicted to sugar as if it was an alcoholic. You know, a little bit of honey for me is like sends me through the roof. Same with like a little bit of fruit, and I become fixated on having to eat these foods, and I'm not a moderator. Like, you know, you mentioned like you've been able to stay within these parameters. I'm like, oh, I wish I was like that.
Well, I can and I can't, and that's why I avoid wine, because if I drink a glass, I drink the bottle, and if I, you know, if I have something sweet in my fridge, I will want it, and I will think about it. And even if I don't have it, I will think about it. So, yeah, and you know, my family we're big people. We love our sweets. You know, this world is surrounded by sweets. Yeah. No, we just came out of this coronation weekend here in the UK, and that was mad. And like, we got an email from school saying we're going to have a tea, and there's going to be biscuits and cookies and cupcakes and party rings and this and that and the other. Like, if I say to my kids not to have it, they'll hate me. So can we just moderate it? Can we just give them a little bit, not a free hand in it?
Yeah.
And then we go to an event, and there's cake and burgers and this and that and the other, and my kids can't moderate themselves, so I have to keep it really strict. Oh, Sam's back in stealth mode. I did. It's brilliant. Come on, I'm still chatting. Mom, 10 more minutes.
If you want to press mute while you're talking to Sam, I'll keep talking for a little bit.
Okay.
Hello.
So,
hang on. I'm gonna.
Hi, Sam. So for those that are watching along at home, you know, this is that conversation, that part that I was just talking about with Shira there, that moderation is some people possess and something that other people don't possess. And from that perspective, it can be really hard to, here's what I want to say is that from my perspective in carnivore, I think that there's a spectrum. And I think that people with MTHFR, for example, people with autism, people with ADHD, people with a lot of these different types of diagnoses need to stay on the spectrum of carnivore. Now, that spectrum could be hypercarnivore, where they can include some plants and fruits and so on. And if they're healthy and well and they have no symptoms, like they can be in that space really, really well. But the more symptomatic you are, the closer you need to be to something like the Lion's diet. Now, that's just one aspect. The other aspect of this for me is those addictions and being able to moderate and being able to look at ourselves and go, actually, I have a problem when it comes to being able to limit, maintain, and control. And because I have a problem with that, it's much easier for me to abstain than it is to actually participate in a little bit of these things. So welcome back.
Thank you. I agree about the abstaining. That's what I do with bread and baked stuff and cakes, things like that.
Look, I have a whole course on how to make sourdough, right? I have a whole course on how to ferment foods and all of that type of stuff as well. And so it's a real interesting spectrum for me to be in the place where I currently am, whereas I don't consume any of those foods. And I don't necessarily recommend, like, if, for example, and what I was saying is if you've got MTHFR or you're on the spectrum for any of the ADHD, ADD, autism, OCD, any alphabet sort of disorders, depression, anxiety, all of that type of stuff, that you probably need to just stay in that space of hypercarnivore. And maybe those people can have a little bit of sourdough every so often. But I laugh now because I'm like, I invested a lot of time in learning how to do these skills and how to make it the best possible version of this food as possible. And now I don't eat any of it.
I know. It's like I got a KitchenAid for a mixer for my wedding, and I was like, yeah, I'll make stuff and cakes and this and that, and then we were like, oh, we can't really have that. So now I asked for a meat grinder attachment for it, and I make sausages in it.
I love it. If I had one of those mixers though, and I had a kitchen because we're traveling Australia, if I had a kitchen, I would definitely be giving like the egg white breads a try and the oopsie cakes and those types of things.
What's your take on the egg white breads? Because they've got the protein supplement, and I'm very much a clean eating kind of person. I use ingredients that are real food rather than
so you can buy egg white powder, which is essentially just egg white that's been if you've got one of those freeze dryers, you can actually make it yourself. So essentially that's what egg white powder is. It's just egg white that's been dehydrated in a freeze dryer and turned into a powder. Whereas there are egg white protein powders, which is slightly different. So I would be using the egg white powder versus the egg white protein powder. But I would also probably be playing around with actually just making it with egg whites. Like that would be kind of my thing on it. And one of the things that I usually find with clients is that we have to play around with whether they can have it or not based on their protein and fat ratio. So for somebody who's trying to heal their hormones, let's say they've got lots of period issues, your fat needs to be much higher. So it needs to be more around 70-80% of your actual diet while those hormones replenish and heal and start doing what they're meant to be doing. But if you've got if you're trying to lose weight, then you actually need to have your protein a little bit higher. And so I always think about carnivore from the perspective of different phases, and you'll get this from GAPS. Like from GAPS, we look at, stage 1 to stage 6, and then we move into full GAPS, and then there's advanced GAPS. And I think about carnivore from that perspective as well. Like there are things in the first stages of GAPS that we don't do that are available in full GAPS and advanced GAPS, and we don't do them because they delay healing or they prevent healing. And it's the same type of thing when it comes to carnivore. If you've got hormones to heal, that's the first thing we want to heal, especially when it comes to weight loss. If we're trying to lose weight, we actually need to heal our insulin receptors, and we need to heal our female hormones, progesterone, testosterone, estrogen, all of that kind of needs to heal, thyroid, adrenals, etc. And that requires more fat. Once those are balanced and healed, then we move into the next phase of like focusing on switching up the protein. And that's where I think like the egg white breads can be quite helpful, because that helps you build up that protein and reduce some of that fat. Because what we want to do at that point, when we move to weight shifting mode, is what we want to do is we want to use the fat on our body as our fuel source. And in order to force it to do that, we need to have more protein to fill us up and make us feel satiated. So we're not hungry and we're not going without, but we're utilizing the fat on our body versus the fat that we're putting in our mouth to do that process. So I think that there's different phases, and I think that's probably where I see when I'm jumping into the Facebook groups and I'm seeing people ask questions and I'm seeing a ton of different answers. Like, I would hate to be somebody on the other end of that that's like, help me, I'm drowning over here, tell me what to do. And somebody's like, swim, the other's like, dive. Like they get so many
everyone's talking from their own perspective.
From their own perspectives and where they are within their own journey. And a lot of them might be, they've been carnivore for 12 months already. And so they're speaking to it from this point where in the early stages, it's really different to what you need at that point.
And you forget.
So I see, exactly. And I see all this information that's going out there. And I'm like, that's why people are failing, or that's why people are struggling, because they're trying to do stuff for this phase, but their body is still in this phase. And that's where
someone like yourself with the knowledge can help, because I don't have that knowledge and that experience. I only have the experience with myself. I'm not very scientific. I'm not very I don't measure my macros or anything. I just eat. I eat real food. I make sure I'm full. If I didn't eat enough and I'm not full, I'll know for next meal what to do. So for me, it's very much trial and error.
Well, and that's the thing, is what it's like for majority of people that aren't getting, say, the support of a practitioner. Maybe one day I'll write the GAPS version book of carnivore. Here's the phases and what you do in each phase. So
I have a question for you, because I feel like there's these parallel worlds where we're both traveling like ships in the night next to each other. The world of carnivore, which is mainly aimed at adults, talking about metabolic, mental diseases and all of that, keto and carnivore. And then there's the world of autism recovery, which nutrition is a huge part of. And I don't think the solution clashes at all, but the conversation is never happening.
And I think that that's really an interesting point too, because one of the things that I often have a lot of GAPS mums come and say is like, I can't get my kids to eat vegetables. And I'm like, stop trying to make them. Like, stop trying to make them eat vegetables. One, their body doesn't, like, they're literally telling you what they need. They need the meat. Like, that's the thing that makes the amino acids so that their brain can work better, so that they can create the neurochemicals that actually makes their brain work better. That's what they need right now. So let's focus on the thing that they need.
That's the shift that I made in my thought process in the past 6 months. Of like, okay, so don't eat the vegetables. It's fine. I don't care. Just eat the meat.
And I think too, like, there's a lot of stuff within that conversation as well, because I knew, like, when my kids were little, we used the vegetables as a way to kind of buffer the diet in the sense of like making it cheaper. But it actually wasn't until we let go of the vegetables that I realized it's actually cheaper without them, because we eat less food overall. Like, the vegetables actually stimulate hunger, and they make you more hungry than if you weren't eating them in the first place.
Guess who's back?
He's determined to be like a guest star on tonight's episode.
Sam, do you want to tell us about the food that you eat? What's your favorite food?
Meat.
Exactly what I was just saying.
Like my mum's sausages.
Oh, how good is it that mum makes her own sausages? Like, not everybody's mum is making sausages.
They're so healthy and yummy.
Good. I bet they make you feel good and make you grow. This is totally on the spare.
So can you go to sleep so I can make you some sausages for tomorrow?
Sausages are delicious.
Yeah.
They're well worth it.
4 minutes. You're
Okay.
coming up.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
I
Okay.
agree,
Okay. Okay.
Karen.
Go on. Go stay in bed. Can you draw me can you make me a drawing?
Oh,
Yeah? Okay. Go do that.
I love seeing somebody else parent as well.
That was calm. It's like it's
I hear
11
you.
o'clock at night. It's 10 past 11 at night. You need to be asleep.
We're on the other end. It is like, what, 8:15 over here.
Yeah, the next day.
Yeah, the next day we're ahead. So was there anything else you wanted to add to that conversation on like the autism recovery space? Like, I feel like I don't know how you found that journey, because I feel like if I go into a room where we're talking about or space on Facebook and they're talking about autism, I can't say diet, because it's like the evil word to say that, you know, this is
Things have
irreversible, we can't do
changed.
anything about it. So
Things
wow,
have
good. I'm
changed.
good to
I
hear that.
feel like when I talk about it, there's less resistance. I think I've learned
Yep.
how to talk about it. I've learned how to bring it up and how to say things in a way that doesn't antagonize people.
Yeah.
I hope that I've helped some people. I spoke to a mum. She somehow got to me through Facebook or something. And her son was like having 7 to 8 bowel movements a day. He was 3.5. He wasn't talking. He was crying all the time.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm not a practitioner. And I said it to her. I said, I'm a mum like you. Whatever advice I give you is friendly mum advice. You know, I wasn't charging
Yeah.
or anything.
Yeah.
And 3 days later, she said to me, his bowel movements have gone down to 1 or 2 a day. How do I now get him out of nappies? And a few days later, she goes, he's been looking at me and calling me mama.
These
And I was
kids
like,
know
okay.
these things already. Like, you know,
Yeah.
that was the thing with my own son's learning, like to watch him be able to go from saying one word and only having one word to saying strings of sentences within 2 weeks taught me they know, they just can't get the operating function to work.
Have you heard of the film Spellers? It's just come out.
No, I haven't yet.
Look it up. I'll send you a link. It's this teaching method for non-speaking autistic people that teaches them how to work with a letterboard first. And they point at letters on a letterboard, and then they move on to like a laminated board if they can, and then they move on to a keyboard that's held up in front of them. And they are a vessel full to the brim with knowledge and ability. They know how to read, they know how to spell, they just need to have the method to show. And that spelling, it's there's kind of 2 parallel methods. One is called rapid prompting method, and the other is spell to something, spell to communicate or something like that. And it's giving them a voice. And they did a screening and a Q&A on Del Bigtree's High Wire. The Wire. And they had a Q&A with them at the end, and they're sitting there typing and pointing, and it was the most touching moment in the world, because they have what to say. Just like you and me. All the thoughts are in there. It just requires the method to be able to express it. And a lot of them also did the nutrition path. So it all worked kind of, and they all most of them knew that their autism was caused by vaccination. So yeah, it's all there, and they're trying. I think the ones who are verbal are trying to show us what they know. But they don't always have the ability.
Exactly.
And I think it's not severe dyspraxia, but it's and Sam was trying to show, what banging your head against the wall or the floor, that's showing I'm in pain or I'm hungry or whatever.
I talk about
being-
it from this perspective, like, because I will have kids that are doing, their head banging, or they're doing some type of behavior, and I talk about it to my parents from this perspective, is that these kids have figured out what most of us don't ever figure out in our lifetime because we never need to, but that is, in order to stop one pain in your body, if you create another pain, you reduce the amount of pain. So for example, if you were to go skiing and you fell down a ravine, and the likelihood you've broken your leg, the likelihood of you being discovered in the next couple of hours is low. The recommendation is go break your finger. And people go, what? Why would you do that? I'm like, because you've now created competing pains.
Yeah.
And those competing pains compete in the nervous system. So instead of getting this one overwhelming pain of your broken leg that you can't bear, you now have two pains that are dulled. And those two pains together give you a less pain overall. And these kids figure this out. That's why they bang their heads. That's why they do things that hurt themselves, because it reduces another pain in their body that they can't communicate with you that they have. And they've figured that out.
Yeah.
Most of us never figure that out, or we do it in a different way. Like we do it in, emotional pain versus physical pain. We numb ourselves in other ways. Yeah, we
exactly.
Yeah.
But I have now a kid who communicates with me in the most beautiful way possible. He asked me last week, how did I feel when I heard he had autism? When they told me that I have autism, I was like, okay, you're okay.
Yeah.
You're going to do well in life with this sensitivity.
And I think that that's a part of, like, for those that are watching at home, I don't think it's 100% diet. I think it is probably about 80% diet, and then 20% therapies and support and all of that other stuff that we need to, like, retrain them. But if we don't give them the basic foundations, like if we don't give them the building blocks for them to be able to make serotonin, dopamine, all of the other different brain chemicals to function, we don't make their body feel good, how can they do any of the other stuff? Like all of the other stuff, like speech therapy, for me is wasting money. You're wasting your money if you're not going to do the dietary stuff alongside of that to actually give your child the best.
And that's exactly the same with metabolic issues. If you're not letting your body work properly, then you're never going to get anywhere. You're not going to have the energy. You're going to decline rather than, age gracefully. I want to age gracefully. I want to, I started having kids late. I want to be around when my kids have their kids. I want to be the grandma who takes them out and has fun with them. I don't want to be the frail old lady or the one who's not around. I want to be here for the long term.
Well, I agree
life
with you there.
Started late for me. I wanted to I want to extend what I've got.
Yeah. I don't want to be the grandma that's sitting in the corner with the walking cane and just kind of watching things happen instead of being able to join in on the actual game.
Exactly. And it's so, I want to scream sometimes when I listen to a carnivore podcast people talking about their transition and how they feel better. They're more alert. They're more this. I'm like, yes. And it's exactly the same with our kids, especially the kids with special needs. When we give them the right nutrition, they thrive. They can sit in a class and learn. And even people from the mainstream who have seen my son and have seen, the transition that other kids go through. And they're like, yeah, that makes sense. That now makes sense. And I want to scream it from the rooftops, but not everyone wants to listen. They think I'm weird. I'm the nagging one. I'm the nagging one who talks about sugar and how bad it is when we all want to have fun.
Yeah, the fun wrecker. No, I think about it from this perspective, that I want the children that I work with and the adults that I work with to get to the place where they're so healthy and well that when they decide to participate in birthday cake, that they're doing it out of a place of decision, where they know, I'm going to feel lousy when I eat this birthday cake. Am I okay with that? Yes, I am, or no, I'm not. And they've made a decision at that point versus it just being a subconscious thing or an addictive behavior. that they're just participating in because they're absolutely addicted to it. And that's one of the things that I talk about again with a lot of my GAPS clients, is that for people who are on the spectrum, for people who have things like MTHFR, ADHD, autism, any of the alphabet diagnoses, depression, etc., they have what is also known as a brewer's stomach. So for them, if they eat carbohydrates, a percentage of that carbohydrate is going to turn into alcohol in their body. So depending on the degree of which that takes place for them will depend on where they lie on some of these spectrums. So for somebody who's got schizophrenia, they basically turn 100% of carbohydrates into alcohol. Somebody who's maybe just got some mild autistic traits turns a smaller amount of that into alcohol. So imagine you're sending your kid off to school and you've given them cereal for breakfast, and they are one of these people that turn carbohydrates into alcohol. It's like you've just sent them off with a bottle of vodka to go off to school and learn.
Exactly.
How are they going to be able to behave? Like adults can't even behave when they're under the influence, and we're expecting children to. And it's coming from their internal biochemistry and what's happening with their gut microbiome and all of that. And we just expect them to be able to push through this, and we discipline them when they can't. But if it was an adult and we knew they were inebriated, we wouldn't expect them to be able to have cohesive conversations and learn at that moment in time.
Exactly. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. And more kids in schools are like that. Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people don't even realize that that's happening for what they would class as neurotypical kids as well. And that, you know, I did a presentation on this not that long ago, that we now eat 10 times the amount of sugar than what they did 100 years ago. So we're expecting kids who are hooked up on sugar 10 times more than their century ago predecessors to be able to do the same type of thing.
Or more.
Yeah, or more.
Yeah,
exactly.
My kids,
it's just not going to happen.
The kids at school, they get school breakfast. It's cereals, bread, jam, low-fat butter. And obviously the milk on the cereal, the sweet cereal, is 1.5%. It's skim milk. It's not semi-skimmed, sorry. It's not the full fat.
Yeah.
That's at 9 o'clock in the morning, 8:30 till 9 o'clock. At 12, they're having lunch. I see the lunch menus. It's, you know, and if it was up to my kids, they would have a jacket potato every day. Oh, look who's back. Ta-da. Ta-da. Fantastic. Oh, it's your bicycle. Sam did some drawings.
Oh, well done, Sam.
Yeah. Okay. Mom. It's fantastic, but I'm still in the middle and I need you to go upstairs. Keep on drawing for me. What is this? I will tell you when I'm finished. We're gonna finish soon. Come on. Have 4 minutes passed? No, only 2. Okay. Okay, keep on drawing. Yeah. Which is this? I don't know.
Feel free to press mute if you want me to talk. I will definitely take up space.
I think so. I'm going to press mute.
Yeah. So this is one of those things that I always think is really important as well when I'm having these conversations with parents, is that kids can't, like, why are we expecting children to be able to do things that adults struggle to do? Like for me as an adult, I struggle to moderate. Why would I expect my children to be able to do that when it's something that I struggle to do? And as a parent, that's my role and my job and my responsibility is to get them to 18 as healthily and completely intact as I possibly can. And then they can make the decisions for themselves what they do with that afterwards. But, you know, I often think back to how I wished my parents were more firm on these things, or even understood these things. I didn't really understand them at the time, but I wish that they knew, and I wish they were more firm, because we all need sometimes somebody outside of ourselves to set some parameters for us and to set some guidelines and to set some rules that help keep us safe. And that's what boundaries are. Boundaries are these things that actually keep us safe and keep us moving forward in the direction that we want to go towards long-term health. And that, I think, is part of our job as parents. And I feel like sometimes we have pulled away from that because of all sorts of different things, like we work or we are doing other things in our life, and we feel bad that we're not with our kids all of the time, or we're not doing things for our kids all the time. So we fill that space with sweet treats instead of actually setting some of those rules and parameters that they actually need from us. Back to you.
Yeah, he's just
He's
just on the
dancing around
toilet, and
edges.
hopefully he'll go to bed now. Yeah, like if my kids could choose what they eat for lunch, it would be a jacket potato with beans and cheese almost every day, unless there's pizza or burgers. So it's impossible to put the choice in their hands. And then there's birthdays, and they get bags of sweets for birthdays. And then there's events at school, and it's pizza and chips night, and it's just impossible.
Remember having this conversation with one of my mentors really early on, and he was saying that parents would say to him, the parents would say to him, feel free to pop mute on as well if you need to, but parents would say to him that oh, it's only in moderation. They only have it every so often when they go to a birthday or they're going to this. And he's
There's
like,
no
okay,
such
so let's
thing
get
as moderation.
Exactly. Let's get the calendar out and work out when's the birthdays that are on. So grandma, grandpa, mom, dad, cousins, let's put all the birthdays on, and friends. And now let's put Christmas on. Let's put Easter on. And by the time they sat down with their calendar, Halloween or any other event that people try, like, we'll celebrate weekends.
Yeah. And we celebrate like the Jewish calendar and the Christian calendar. So
yeah. And so by the time you've put all of those events on an actual calendar, you suddenly see moderation is once a month, and they're not having it once a month. They're having it once a week at the least amount.
Yeah.
Like most likely they're having it 2 or 3 times a week. And that's not counting what then might go into lunch boxes and might go into, hey, let's just drive past McDonald's on our way home and get an ice cream, or any of that type of stuff. Is not counting any of that. And then suddenly that's when parents go, oh, hang on, this isn't moderation. This is intoxication.
Yeah, it is. It's exactly that. And there's so much that we need to do for our kids on that. And even like I drum it into my kids, like I drum other things. Like, meat is good for you, fruit and vegetables you can have, but they now say vegetable want to kill us. They said it to our guests yesterday, and one of them's a doctor.
Oh no, that's hilarious.
And she goes, oh, okay.
So with that topic, because I know we want to wrap up because Sam needs you in bed, but I'm curious, how have your extended people gone, like visitors, friends, etc.? Do they all know you're carnivore at this moment? And like, how
they
are they
kind of know? Yeah, they kind of know I'm carnivore. They can see that I'm kind of losing weight and feeling well. So that same doctor, she actually specializes in hereditary metabolic, like genetic metabolic disorders. And she sees patients on the ketogenic diet doing well. So she's, she understands that there's something there. My mother-in-law was mortified. She was like, but blueberries are good.
I love it. Everybody's got their thing. They've got their
I know.
But bananas.
Yeah, and you're not doing it with the kids, are you? I was like, no, it's okay. Don't worry. The kids are still on the gaps. It's fine. But they're having their vegetables. Yeah, they are. And everyone keeps reminding me that it's working for me. It's working for me, and it's great that it's working for me.
For me. I love that.
So great that you found the way that's working for you, Shira. Fantastic. And my sister and mom in Israel are vegetarian.
Oh, I love it.
So they're like also like, so if I eat this and I eat that, I'm like, do you have a problem? Like, are you overweight, or are you happy with where you are? It's like, I'm happy. Maybe you lose a kilo or 2. I'm like, so you don't need to do what I'm doing. If you're happy where you are and you're eating, if what you're doing is good, is working for you, then. And
you're happy with it, and everything is fine, you're not sick or anything like that, keep going. Keep going. Talk to me about
it. It's like other parents kind of see what I do with Sam, and they feel so self-conscious. And I'm like, your kid doesn't have a problem like mine does. You know, if they did, then maybe you'd want to consider, and I'm here to help you if you want it. But there are so many kids on stool softeners and, you know, picky
Ritalin
eaters.
and
Parents
oh my
complain
gosh.
but don't want to listen. They want to complain, they don't want to listen.
And I think that
But
that's the challenge that I find sometimes, is that I can't understand why, but I can as well. Like for me, I don't know about you, but I would move heaven and earth to make my children the healthiest that they possibly could be. And I would do anything to do that, which is part of the reason that I'm doing carnivore, is because they deserve to have a healthy mother. And so I am doing what I'm doing to give them what they actually deserve in order for them to have a healthy life where I'm still around and doing all of those things with them. And so there's a part of me that goes, why wouldn't you want the best for your children? And that requires sometimes being the meanie, being the person that said, no, we're not going to do those things, or we're not going to participate in all of this, or we're not going to have these things because that's the best thing for you at this point in time, and use that as an education point as to why. Like my kids learn that, you know, essentially there's a whole system that wants you to be sick. It wants you to be a client forever and ever, amen, where you are consistently on a drug and that you never get off of that drug, and then you need more drugs in order to be able to balance the effects of this drug, because they want you to be a patient and their customer for the rest of your life. And so they have set all sorts of different things in motion in order to funnel you down that pathway. This is their sales funnel to get you to be a constant client forever and ever, amen. And if you don't want to be a constant client, you have to work against the funnel. You have to be able to read the funnel. You have to be able to read their marketing ploys and their language to be able to change that. And that's what I've proactively been teaching my children. And now, like, my kids are starting to move into adulthood, and I'm seeing them. Most of them are choosing to spend their money on carnivore snacks. Like, yes, they're still going to buy some lollies here and there, but majority of the time they're fully aware of how that makes them feel. And they're like, I kind of don't like it. It tastes nice for about 5 minutes, but I actually prefer to not have painful periods and to not have this and that and not have
I hope
acne.
my kids get to that point when they're a bit older and they're able to make those decisions for themselves. Because right now they choose, you know, they choose the crap food because they're 5 and 8. And, you know, my 5-year-old boy, his bum itches every time he eats too much sugar and carbs. He can't sleep.
I think it's part of that educational process too, because my little ones are still there too, because I've got, you know, quite a big age group there of 10 years. And so my little ones, if they got to choose anything, they'd still choose the garbage. But it's my big ones now that have moved to that place of recognizing that it doesn't work for them, doesn't feel good. So they eventually get there. But it's just, we've got to be the parameter, or the, like, you know, we are the lion protecting our bear cubs or our babies until they reach that point. And sometimes letting them experience it is good. Like, you know, for me, if one of my kids had an itchy bum, every time I'd be like, remember, that's because you've eaten those carbohydrates, and that's what that does to you. It feeds these. And look, I go into full graphics. I'm like, you know, those worms that are inside of you wiggling around, they're making it itchy because they're poking their heads out of your bottom. And, like, you know, I fully go graphic on them.
Yeah, completely.
So
no, we had this book.
Know.
I got, I'm sure you know, Jo Whitton, Quirky Cooking. So I got from her website some books for kids. Happy Poo, they love it. And the castle, there's one with a castle with the tummy, and there's a one called Gaps Kids. So we've read them all. We talk about the Happy Poos. We talk about the different characters of the bloaty and the Colonel No Can Do, and it's all part of the conversation. Mommy, I had a porridge poo. I'm like, you had a porridge poo because you ate the bread the other day.
Yep. And that's the thing, is just linking those things for them so that when they get older, they know, and they're making a conscious choice. That's the key for me, is I'm happy for any person to choose what they want to eat, but do it with a conscious choice, knowing the facts versus actually what the propaganda that you've been told. Like, if you've been told that eating a vegan diet kills less animals, then someone's lied to you, because it kills more.
I think we need to wrap it
we
up.
better wrap up. So with that in mind,
Yeah.
if somebody wanted to find you,
I'm just going to say goodbye.
Okay.
Okay.
so if somebody wanted to find you, how would they find you? What would be
On
the best place?
Instagram, I'm My Gutsy Kitchen.
Yep.
I'll send it to you.
Awesome.
So it's
I'll
at
put the
My
links below.
Gutsy Kitchen. Yeah. And on Facebook, I'm Shira Daniels.
Awesome. So you're happy
Yeah.
for people to reach out and contact you and continue the conversation?
Very, very happy. If I can
My
help.
real name
Oh.
is Samuel Philip Daniels.
And this is
Oh,
Samuel.
Beautiful
Daniels.
Samuel
But
Philip.
people
That is
at
definitely an
school
English name.
just call me Sam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Good job,
from
Sam.
Sam and Shira, thank you for listening to us.
Enjoy the rest of your night. Hopefully Sam will go
Thank
for
you.
sleep
Enjoy
for
the rest
you,
of
and
your
we'll talk to
day.
you again soon. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.